That's what we're seeing with Google and Microsoft popularizing geospatial data and location-based services, and Apple with their iPhone. I think this is going to be our big job, is how do we keep up at bringing this all together, not just taking a bunch of data and throwing it into a large warehouse with no metadata and with random currency. People are looking for things that are more authoritative, and that's going to be a lot of work to do that. Rich internet applications, we're starting to see them emerge all over the web. In fact, I would say that the web development tools have now surpassed desktop development tools in the ability to build very, very powerful and easy to use, highly interactive applications. Our company have last year released a web API, a REST API that supports JavaScript, Flex, and Silverlight, the three main protagonists in the battle for supremacy on the rich application world. JavaScript, the open standard, Flex and Flash, Adobe standard, and Silverlight, Microsoft standard. Those were included as part of ArcGIS Server for ArcGIS Server users, but yesterday we announced that those are going to be free to everyone. Those are now free APIs. They can be downloaded, and those APIs can be used to develop applications using our web content infrastructure or our partners' content infrastructure, Microsoft's Bing Maps, and many others at no cost for non-commercial use. And the definition of non-commercial use is very broad. We think this is going to make a big difference in helping our user community and other user communities access the work of our core professional GIS community as they publish their maps. I wanted to give you a look at what one of our users is doing here in a little demonstration of something called Solar Boston. So this is quite an interesting site. The city of Boston is looking to find areas. They want to, similar to the province of Ontario, they're encouraging solar energy. So I can go in here, for instance, and I can take a look at all of the projects. So this will take me back to, I can go see a particular solar project, and I can see panels, there's some solar panels on a roof there, and that's the name of a project. So I can just click around here, and I can move around the city and look and see where the projects are taking place, where there are current solar projects. I could also use a tool here that goes back to the server and does some calculations for me. So if I want to actually select a building, let's say I want to put some solar panels on that building right there, it highlights the building and then does a calculation back on the server of what is the potential of that particular building for solar energy. And it gives me the roof area brought right from the map. It calculates the amount of energy that I'm likely to get, the cost of the putting it in, and the potential cost savings and the CO2 savings. So this is a citizen-based application, and there's a number of other layers that I could turn on here as well. For instance, I could actually go in here and look at the solar radiation because it looks at buildings that are facing south or not shaded by trees. So I can say, okay, now I can go to a particularly high potential building. I can go to that one right there and say, what's that going to be? Let me just move this out of the way. And now I can see the possibility for that building, the calculations, what are the assumptions that went into it, and what are the next steps. Here are the things that I have to do as a citizen if I want to go get solar panels on that roof with the support of the city. So this is a good example of a rich internet application that citizens are going to come in and use. I've been doing a similar thing in Toronto, looking at the potential for green roofs, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. There's a major conference coming up in October in Toronto on cityscapes that's looking at what are the issues around putting green roofs on buildings around the world. So content is going to be key in the Geoweb. I noticed one of the papers in this conference coming up, and it sounds to me like a very interesting paper, talking about the role of SDIs and how SDIs worldwide have not resulted in a great increase in publishing of government data like topographic maps. And when I look into that, I'm very interested to hear what the author has to say, because I agree with that. I think that SDIs have not yet reached their promised potential. In the meantime, we and other companies, Google and Microsoft and others, are mining this data and putting it together in ways that can be easily delivered to users. So this is, let me just back up for a moment. This is the free services that are being offered by our organization to be used with those free APIs that I just mentioned recently. I'd like to show you a little bit of another application here, and this is from, this is a base map template that we put together using that similar technology. But the underlying map behind here is interesting, because we are working with Natural Resources Canada, who are the Secretariat for GeoConnections. And GeoConnections has a program called GeoBase. GeoBase is about, excuse me, had the air conditioning on in the room last night and it dried me out a little bit. GeoBase is a program of pulling all of the provinces and the federal government together and taking things like roads and hydrology network and being able to turn those into an application that, and data that can be published across the web. Now, of course, I would lose my connection here to this one. Let's just go, there we go. There's a Iqaluit. Let's go to Edmonton. So we can just flip around the world, or flip around the country, and look at these fairly nice maps. These are actually pretty good looking maps, and these are being built from the data that's sitting in federal government databases. It's generally not particularly accessible. We've got this map. This is a topographic map for all of Canada. ESRI in the US has been working with the US Geological Survey to build a topographic map for all of the United States, and that was released a couple of weeks ago on the web. This site that I'm looking at here is on the open web, but it's actually not a cached map service. This is a dynamic map service, so that's why you're not seeing the speed that you'll get if it's cached, but that's because we're still working on the cartography of the map. But this lets us go to various places around the country. I've got some additional tools that I could actually use, and I can look at some different templates as well. So this is just a different way of looking at the same data, exactly the same data, but symbolized a little bit differently. So I think one of the roles of the Geoweb is going to be to work with these SDI organizations and mine out this data that's being created by the spatial data infrastructure and turn it into live maps that the greater user community of the Geoweb can use more effectively. Another area that's growing quickly is users who want to share their data with others. I go all the way back in my career to the days where we were using things like Intergraph standard interchange format, or getting an Intergraph binary file and converting it into a ArcInfo coverage, or taking some of the standards like the original SAFE and moving data around on 9-track tapes. Sharing is still actually not that, even though we've got fantastic companies like SAFE that let us move data back and forth, it's still not that easy to share. So a few months ago, we created a sharing site in ArcGIS Online. This is hosted in Amazon's cloud that lets our users share data with each other. They can create groups where they can post their data to a site. They can share among the groups, or they can just share with everyone. And then they can browse and search through this online resource. We've made it very easy for users of our desktop technology to create a package that they can create. This is something called a layer package. It bundles the data and its symbolization together in a way that you can just right-click and share it, email it to someone, send it to them on a CD. But more importantly, you could upload it to the online sharing site. We think this is going to build a lot of new community. The geography network was like this in its early days, and this is really the next generation of the geography network.